Hello everyone, welcome back to Owen's Treats. And for today's video, we are going to be making a cherry pie. My aunt recently dropped over a whole bunch of sour cherries, thank you so much. And so I came up with the idea to make a cherry pie since we had fresh cherries and we had a lot of them. I'm going to be making my own pie crust and I'm going to be making the filling. So with that, let's get started. We have all of our ingredients. For our cherry pie filling, 4 cups of fresh sour cherries, 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, which I added to the cherries, so I'm letting the cherries soak in our lemon juice. 2 tablespoons of butter, but I have 2 whole sticks of butter, which is going to be used for both the pie crust and the filling. 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. For our pie crust, we have 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter. We have 3/4 cup of vegetable shortening, 1/2 cup of ice water. Now for the vegetable shortening, you can simply just replace it with butter, which is what I like to do. For this recipe, our cherry filling is going to be cooked over heat, and then I have them soaking in lemon juice for a little bit. This is 3/4 cup of cherry mixture jammy, and then we're going to add in our cornstarch. Then we're going to turn on our heat. So you see that you are able to scrape the spoon off the bottom of the pan, and it leaves a nice trail. While our cherry mixture cools off to the side, we're going to start making our pie crust. So now that we have our butter, flour, and salt mixture, or shortening, depending on what you're using, we are then going to crumble it. So I'm just going to take a potato masher, even a fork, and try everything. And the basic goal of this is that you want to get your flour mixture into a kind of crumbly texture, almost like you crushed up graham crackers. And so now we're about getting the texture that we're looking for, which is almost about kind of crumbly-ish, but at the same time, it's not holding its shape whatsoever. Okay, so now that we kind of have our dough kind of crumbled up, you're not seeing a lot of big kind of chunks in here of big chunks of butter. You're kind of just seeing a lot of small crumbly bits, and you're kind of getting that nice good texture and consistency. You're going to take your ice water. I can't stress this enough. You want all your product cold. And we're just going to take our ice water, and we're just going to dribble a little bit at a time. And still with your hands, you're just going to knead it in. If you don't like the feeling of cold water, ice cold water, then you can just use a potato masher, fork, or whisk, whatever you feel is comfortable with. And you're just trying to get it so a kind of dough comes together. You're going to take some, not all of it, just some of your leftover flour. And you're just going to sprinkle it very lightly on the surface. And then you're going to take out your dough. As you can see here. And you're not trying to knead it. All you want to do is try to form it into a ball, where it should keep its shape, but at the same time, it should almost feel like it's going to come apart. So then you're going to take that, and you're going to break it in half, and you're going to form 2 circular discs. And these discs are going to be your 2 pie crusts. You can add a little bit more to one than the other, and then that one will become your bottom, because you always want your bottom crust to be a lot bigger than your top crust, because the bottom crust covers a lot more. So I'm going to take a little bit off of this one and add to this one. Okay, so now that you have your 2 discs done, you're going to put them in cling wrap, and then you're going to put these in the fridge for 2 hours. So now that we have all of our things chilled and kind of have it all together, we are now going to start working on rolling out our dough. So I have our two dough. I have our bottom piece and our top piece. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put our jam to the side, our cherry jam. And then I'm going to start rolling out our first layer of our dough, which is going to be the bottom layer. So I have my pie pan here. I'm going to take a little bit of flour. Now sprinkle it on the board, I should say, on the table. And then we're going to unwrap our dough. And it should be chilled, it should be pretty hard. So we're going to try our best to roll this. And it's probably not going to come out perfect first time, just because it's really cold. And you want it to be cold, because then it'll warm up later. And then you should know when your pie crust is about done, when it's larger than the outside of your pie pan. So mine is about almost an inch outside of it, so that's a good kind of range, an inch or two outside of your pan. And I have my oven, good timing, my oven is preheating to 400 right now. So basically, you're gonna roll your pie dough, your flattened pie dough, onto your rolling pin. So I use a spatula to help me loosen it up. And then I loosely rolled it, and then I put it back onto our pie pan, and pie pan, and then rolled it back out, and then took our folded edges, and I lightly lifted them, and then I used my pointer finger knuckle to just kind of push it into the corners of edges of our pie pan. And I'm just going to try to cut off the very edge of the pie dough, because we don't need this anymore. And don't worry about these edges, we're going to cover them up anyways with our top pie dough. Save these scraps because your top might be a little bit too small, your dough. So make sure to save this just in case. Measuring cup, and we're just going to press into the sides of our dough. And this helps with any cracks in our dough. You can pinch the sides just so you got a uniform edge. I'm just going to take my two kind of pinching fingers, and I'm just going to press them, press the sides, going back and forth along the edge. And I'm just going to roll out my dough the same way I did as my bottom piece. And now comes the fun part. So, we're going to take our jam, and we're going to dump our filling into our pie. Crust, sheet, dough, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to do some sort of stripe design. So, for stripe design, you're going to cut out a square into your dough. Now, I'm going to take a pizza cutter, and I'm just going to cut out now that we have our nice, beautiful stripes, we're going to take each one and we're going to place it on the top of our pie. So now that we have our wonderful pie design almost done, so I'm just going to take my fork, or a fork, and I'm just going to press the sides in to make little indents. So I have my cherry pie almost done. So to finalize our pie, our almost finished pie, we are going to add our toppings. So I have egg white, so I just separated the yolk from the egg. And basically all I did was juggle the yolk between the two shells that you crack open, and then you get egg white. So I'm going to take my egg white, and I'm going to brush it over my pie, trying my best not to get the cherry filling on the tops of my pie crust. So now that we have our pie egg whited, I guess in a sense, I'm going to take some cinnamon powder and I'm just going to sprinkle it on top of our pie. And then I have our leftover 2 tablespoons, not teaspoons, of butter, and I have them still cubed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate them into cubes, and then I'm going to place them throughout the pie. Now while this bakes, the butter is going to soak through into the pie. Oopsie daisy. The butter is going to soak through into the pie, and then that's going to cause nice little pockets of butter, and it's going to help the crust brown. So I have my little cubes. Nothing too fancy. One in the middle. And so now I have my oven preheated to 400, and I'm going to pop this into it for about 40 to 45 minutes. And here's our pie, quite literally fresh out of the oven. So I'm going to let this cool for about 15 minutes before I start eating it. But I think it came out quite perfect. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Owen's Treats. I hope you guys recreate this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!